Hi guys, welcome to the weekly Facebook Live show in the Powerhouse Pros community. I always get tied up on those words for some reason because I think the podcast Pitching Powerhouse, which is my show, appropriately we're going to be talking about podcasts today. I always want to say Pitching Powerhouse, not Powerhouse Pros, but you are here either on the Generation PR page or Powerhouse Pros, and I want to welcome you. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, I'm here every week, Thursday, 11 a.m. Pacific. The only time I may not be here is if I'm out of town, which won't happen again until sometime in mid-August. I'm just going to wait a minute until my ride or dies come and find me over here. If you're watching on the replay, let me know who's here. I'd love to say hi. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. We are going to talk about podcast pitching, which is such a great media opportunity for us, for our clients. So let's chat about it. Hi, welcome guys. Let me know who's here. I can see. And welcome. It's here in Southern California, starting to get just a little hot. So if you see me start to shine, it is because hot. Hi, Serena. Nice to see you. Okay. Welcome. Okay. I'm so glad you could join me. Like always, like I said, I've got my ride or dies that always come and make me feel so happy. Otherwise, it's really hard to talk to myself. Okay, you guys, so today's topic, see, it says Facebook user. I don't know who that is. I think because you might be watching on Powerhouse Pros. If you just let me know who's there, I will then be able to know. So yeah, if you're just joining, Nelson's here. Hi guys, Serena, and let me know who else, just because I can't see it. Amy. Oh, hi, Amy. Nice to see you. Okay, great. I'm going to chat all about podcasts today. So we are going to cover today 4 key strategies. Hi, Kelly. Today we're going to cover 4 key strategies for building a compelling podcast pitch for your clients. Why you should secure your own podcast interviews as an expert digital agency owner, whatever your niche, your expertise is, the service you provide. You've got something to talk about. And we're going to talk about why you should be proactively pitching yourself and how to find the perfect podcast guest spot for both of you and your client. So we're going to cover this. I mean, I think it's a really cool, easier, sometimes low-hanging fruit type of opportunity for our clients. And obviously when Nelson started, I started, they didn't podcasts weren't a thing. And I remember my very first client that was like, hey, we want to be on podcasts. And I was like, podcasts? Like radio? Nobody's listening to radio. It's like so bad that I was so kind of naive. But I think at the time the podcasts were bigger shows, like NPR shows that didn't have smaller, really specific content driven. Yeah. Let me know who that is because I just see Facebook user, but also let me know what was your podcast about. That's really cool. Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like I know who that is, but I don't want to. Is that Lauren? I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. So yeah, when the client, they were a manufacturer of like party supplies and they were like, we want to be on podcasts. And I'm like, But for interviewing a founder of a company, establishing expertise, sharing your expertise to help draw in your audience by sharing what you know how to do. Oh, it's Chrissy. Hi. Oh, what was your podcast about, Chrissy? Music industry? Or let me know. So I know podcasts are everywhere. Chrissy had one 10 years ago. Everything Empowering Women. Oh, I love that. Resurrected, and I'd love to be on. I love it. Yeah. Nelson's like, I had to tune into you. That's awesome. So I know everybody has had a podcast. Chrissy, I have a podcast, Pitching Powerhouse. And while podcasts can be really fun to listen to while you're waiting to pick up your kids or you're running errands, taking the dog for a walk, or you're kind of tidying up the house, they're also a really great tool for getting your client to really engaged, targeted new audiences. And they let your client show off who they are as a founder, a brand, share their personality, really express their corporate values, all while having the opportunity to promote upcoming launches, new initiatives that are important to the brand. So it's such a great outlet because reading on a website, the audience's attention span is really short, but there's a lot of research that shows that people listen to like 80% or more of podcasts when they check into an episode. So that's a long attention span. So there's a lot of opportunity to share and connect. That's what we love about podcasts, is that connection you're able to form. But that's a different type of pitch than a typical media type of pitch. You need your client's founder or maybe an in-house expert to share like a captivating story or some very specific expertise that would be beneficial to a targeted audience, that would be on top of their niche expertise. And if you're pitching yourself as an expert in running your digital agency, then things might get a little more complicated. We're going to talk through that, and I'm going to share my best strategies for successfully pitching your client and yourself for podcast guest spots. And as I'm talking through these strategies, I would love to hear from you what you have worked on that has had an impact, that's converted really well. Some strategies from everything from where to find the right podcast. We're going to start there all the way to writing compelling pitches that get a yes, or topics that seem to really resonate when you pitch them or when audiences hear them. So first, we're going to talk about how to use podcast pitching to secure your client's guest spot. The first thing you have to do, find those perfect podcasts. I mean, hundreds of thousands of podcasts are out there. And also take a sip of your coffee every time I say the word podcast, because I'm going to say it a lot today. I can already tell that I'm saying it a lot, but maybe say show. I don't know, something to give it a little variety. But there might be thousands that are right for you or for your client. And there is some good news in the fact that there are a lot that aren't right. So you can eliminate them right away, because you should not be pitching your client as a guest to every podcast that's out there. They have to be a good fit. So anything that isn't connected to your client's niche or their expert or their expertise is an automatic no. And, just take it off the list, because if my client's a beauty industry founder, really savvy dermatologist, that's part of the board of my LED skincare company, LED device skincare company, they're not the right fit for a music industry podcast. So it's like, just because a show is really popular doesn't mean, obviously it's alignment. So what a good way to start is looking at your clients' competitors to see what podcasts their experts have been featured on. And podcasts that are also hosted by your media contacts publications. Like most of the heritage title publications have their own, and even the digital outlets that are really appealing are their podcasts are out there from these publications. Like Allure is a great fit for my client, and they happen to have their own podcasts. Christy, is that you saying? I use Podmatch. I do have an affiliate link I'd love people to use if they do decide to use it. Yeah, please, by all means, drop your affiliate link here if people want to give it a try. It's great for discovering good ones and getting some quick wins. There are a variety of different size podcasts, and I have found some really good ones that have led to leads for your clients. Yeah, go ahead and drop it here, Chrissy. I'm happy to have you share that and give people the opportunity to give it a try. I've heard really good things about Podmatch. I don't personally use it, but I know that people have found great shows that they wouldn't have otherwise found. So I guess I'm seeing everything, but if you're watching on Generation PR's Facebook page, anybody who's in pitching, or Powerhouse Pros is not going to see it, but I see it. So let me see. It's podmatch.com/signup/be a better brand, Kelly, or just go to Powerhouse Pros and you'll be able to see Chrissy's post in there, or I can grab it after the fact and drop the link in there. But we want to communicate to podcast hosts or to their bookers that our guests that we're pitching will be engaging and will create an interesting info-packed episode. They want their listeners to get something out of your chat, something of value, something inspiring, a how-to. So consider how your client could add value to the podcast, whether it's through their deep expertise or a fresh perspective on the industry. Maybe they have a counterintuitive position on something, or something that's like a little bit of a, we're going to ruffle some feathers with this, but let's get them on to really, kind of shock and then explain. That's always a really great position to go in, because it gets people like riveted. Like, why are they saying that? And they go, oh, okay, I can see that. It's that sort of that strategy of like coming out with unpopular opinion and then getting people's attention that way. So maybe they share some really cool industry innovations that they're working on, or their personal experience in building their business. This is why I love the How I Built This podcast with Guy Raz, another NPR podcast that's been around a really long time. The criteria is really challenging, because you have to have a very, very, very profitable business. They want to see numbers. But the podcasts that I've heard, the guests, like the founder of Rivian, the new electric truck company, really talked about the struggles they went through and all of the iterations of the company before they finally landed on the thing, and how they developed some supply chain processes because they were launching in the middle of COVID with disruption to, like he described, a light, like a headlight, has so many parts. There might be I think he said something like 500 components to a headlight. And if one component from one manufacturer is held up, then the entire headlight is held up and the entire car is held up. So they had to get really creative out of necessity. And that was such an interesting story to really see this disruptive brand and have them, talk about that. So sharing the experience, and I'm so distracted right now because my kids are yelling. Can I mute? Hold on one sec. Can I mute here? I don't think I can. Hold on. Maybe. I don't know. Trying to yell at my kids I'll see if they keep going. Keep it down. But any kind of fresh perspective in that way, where you're disrupting an industry or noting industry trends maybe before they're really about to pop on the scene. So giving those listeners an experience when they're listening, because you assume they're on that show because the topic generally resonates with them. So your guest is going to be a good fit because they are further sharing something about that niche, that industry, business in general. So you are going to create a podcast shortlist. I did put a little note here that ChatGPT may be helpful with this if you ask it very specifically for certain types of podcasts, and you can get creative with the size or the listenership and the topic, the niche, how frequently the episodes are released. Do they take guests? You'll see what it comes up with, and you can keep asking it until you get a pretty good starting spot. And then once you have a few, I mean, you can ask it to give you a certain number. Generally, they'll give a list of, 10 or so. But if you ask it for more, see what it comes up with. And you still, with anything that comes out of ChatGPT, you still have to take the time to vet it. Don't just assume if it spits out a podcast that it's absolutely right. They may not take guess. They may not be exactly the right fit for your client. You have to still look, but at least it's a starting place. Another place to go is to our media contacts database. I'm going to see if I can pull a link for that quickly, just if you don't know about it. When you enroll in our pitch lab and you do an annual membership, you get a bunch of stuff, including 2 months free, which is great. And then you get access to our contacts database. And I happen to know there are like at least 1,000, maybe more podcasts in there, and you can search by niche. So I'm just going to put a link if you want to find out more about it, because it might be a really cost-effective solution for you to be able to, if you scroll all the way down here, so I'm going to give you this link to all of our programs. If you are not in Lead to Landed, it's a great opportunity. I know Chrissy's in, not Lead to Landed, sorry. What is it called? Generation Database has some great contacts. Thank you. Chrissy's in it. Kelly's in it. Nelson has been in the program. Jane, I don't know if she's here. She's in the Pitch Lab. But scroll down and you'll see the opportunity to enroll in the Pitch Lab and get it for free. Or if you just want to enroll in the database, there's an opportunity to do that too. Check it out. It's really good. And our community helps us curate it so that it is up to date and as current as possible. And we think we do a really good job of that. So you've got your list, and what you need to do is listen to a few episodes of each podcast. Get a feel for the tone, the style of the interview, what is the format, get to know the hosts a little bit, see how they go about interviewing guests, what's their style, how much time does the guest actually get. Check out the list of the previous guests that they've had to learn what kinds of stories they usually tell, and if you or your client would actually be a fit. I think having no stories like yours might be a positive or a negative, because it might mean that maybe it's a topic they don't really look to cover, or it could mean that they haven't found the right guest, or you come at it from a fresh perspective and offer up your client to share something that hasn't ever been on the show before, but it's still a fit. Like with How I Built This would be, all of the, like, how did you start your business as an entrepreneur? Where did you sort of get this drive? And then tell us about like the pitfalls and then the ultimately the success. So they may never have had a topic like your clients, or they might have had something similar, which means, okay, they cover this. Then you come in with a unique perspective. Or if they have featured something similar, again, unique perspective. So I think whether they've had it or not, you can look at it from both sides, as long as you align your pitch, the idea you're sharing about your client, to really be something that'll resonate with their audience. So you've got your, list, and you've done your research. So now you've got to get this pitch ready. So you want to go deep with your client's founder or expert. And when I say expert, I've used this example before, but one of my clients is a breast pump company. When we took them on, I was like, breast pumps can be really hard. Probably not going to get them a lot of press. Pumps are not that sexy. But we implemented an expert strategy, and we have a doula, all board certified. We have a doula and we have a lactation consultant, and they have great personalities, very responsive, extremely knowledgeable. And we have offered them up for expert driven content around topics, around breastfeeding, talking about pumps, and whether or not they mention the brand as like a product that would solve a problem, they are always credited in the byline as being the board certified lactation consultant for my client's brand. So while these experts are not part of the company per se, they're not like the marketing director or product innovation, they're on the board, they're consulted, and they are board certified expert, which gives them credibility. And our media contacts love having access to these people because, the client's paying them, but they're massively like knowledgeable and very responsive. So if they need something with a quick turnaround, our experts are going to give something that's usable. So we've gotten tons of press using that strategy because the company isn't totally like, there isn't anyone there who could come on and give that level of knowledge, expertise, all of that. So you might want to consider a paid expert. Another one of my clients is a really kind of high-tech, innovative baby monitor company. And we have just implemented this strategy with a sleep consultant. So certified sleep consultant. And now we're offering that expert to the media. And I will always refer back to my client's baby monitor company because they are a board member expert that gives them insight as they're developing products. Okay, so that's the tie in there. So you want to go deep with your client's founder or that expert and tell a story, right? And so the most effective pitches will know that, really find a way to share that founder's story or the expert's unique approach, their perspective, their strategies to solve certain problems that a lot of the listeners might be experiencing. So the bio is a really great place to start for really basic details that can kind of help narrow down the podcast search. But this is where you're going to learn about their specific area of expertise, kind of like broad strokes info about how they got to where they are now and some details on their background. And then you can ask them more about it and say, okay, you come at the client and you kind of interview them. We've done this with our founders. We've sat and interviewed them. We've recorded Zoom and asked them a bunch of questions and taken down all of you can even have a transcription plug-in or do it after the fact. Rev will do it for really inexpensive and get a transcription and use all of that they shared to kind of pick out the gems that could be really good, compelling podcast interviews. And your client, if your client's expert has done podcasts before, sometimes that's part of how they were discovered by your client, or they are just a regular guest. You can take those clips, ask them, can we get those clips, and start to review them. Oh, that's smart. I use Descript for transcripts. It allows you to put captions on the videos too. So such a time saver, right? Anything to save time. We just started using, oh my God, I can't remember what it's called. I noticed it. I didn't even know we were doing this, but on our Zoom meetings, there's like a software that comes on. I thought it was someone else's, but I realized it's us. And the summaries we get are incredible because it is like reviewing the entire discussion of our coaching calls, and it is summarizing it, giving action items. It'll say Chrissy mentioned that she is raising her rates, and Jen responded by asking her what goes into her calculation. It's like really smart how it is coming up. You guys may have seen it on some of our calls. I'm like, oh, somebody sent their note-taking software. Well, it was me. I didn't know. Like Miranda set it up. But I look at these summaries and it is such a time saver. So instead of me having to type it all out and say, here's what we talked about, it will go in and do that. I think maybe even with timestamps. So it's really, really smart. But you're going to get your experts podcast clips, TV shows, anything they've done, and watch them. And maybe there is like a reel they have, or maybe you can help build the reel with what they've already done. But you also want to kind of look for matching the energy with a podcast host's energy. So a more serious host, somebody that's really like kind of intense or like stays on topic and doesn't really have like a playful vibe, it's not going to mix well with a bright, bubbly expert. It's going to feel really awkward. So that's another thing you want to keep in mind when you're looking for things to connect your client or their expert with, is like that fit on the energy level. That also kind of comes along with the topic itself, So You also want to meet with your client's expert, get to know them, have a call with them, and really dig into the details. Again, you can interview them like you would interview your client, but find those tidbits of information that can lead you to that perfect podcast. So, where did they go to college? What university did they attend? Maybe they could be featured on a podcast that's hosted by fellow alumni. My husband just did a Bruin Success Network, something like that. Oh, I forgot to curl. Yikes. Where did this come from? I'll just fling it back there. I don't know. So he recently did an interview because he went to UCLA and they have a really cool alumni network podcast that he just won like the Bruin 100 Bruin Business Award, something like that. We went to an award ceremony for him. Really cool. But because he was awarded, he's an alum, he is a great fit for that podcast. So he pitched himself and he's like, I don't think I'm going to get it. Well, they interviewed him, a pre-interview to see if he was a fit, and they picked him. And so he's going to be on that. And the real connection was business, but also being an alum of UCLA. Maybe the expert has podcasts, or your client as the founder have podcasts that they regularly listen to. And maybe there's also low-hanging fruit with friends or connections they have that also have podcasts. So get a full picture of what they're looking for with podcast opportunities. This is the opportunity when you sit and chat with them to figure out where they see themselves, where you see them being a good guest. Ask if they'd be comfortable being on a podcast that might highlight a certain aspect of their identity, like female entrepreneurs, people of color that are agency owners, region-based podcasts, LGBTQ small businesses. These are aspects that would make them a fit for certain shows. Maybe they would love to highlight that unique connection. And maybe they're like, you know what? That's not really something that I want to highlight. You have to ask these questions and make sure you're pitching them somewhere that they would be comfortable sharing. Make sure they're ready for a remote podcast interview. You have to kind of run through their tech and see what they have. You don't want like feedback. You want them to have a quiet space. So this is where you can step in and say, here's what we suggest. There's inexpensive podcasting equipment that sounds really good. Like my setup, I don't even know if I'm on this mic right now, to be honest with you, but I have a stand with like a shock absorber. I have an inexpensive Blue Yeti mic I've had for, 7-8 years. And I have can you hear that? Does it sound like I'm on this mic? I really don't even know. But I have a pop filter so that you don't hear the like every time you say a P or a T. So I don't even know if I'm on that mic. It looks like it's on, but I don't know if my audio is going through it. And if I'm not on it, then I'm going through my regular computer. So it's, the newer computers and phones have really good mics that would pass. Quality, it would be fine. And they don't have a lot of feedback. So the other thing you're doing once you kind of go deep with their expertise, you want to build a compelling story. So we know that podcasts are planning out their content a lot of times months, even sometimes a year in advance. So they may make some changes or updates for major developments in that niche, but they're likely sticking to that content schedule. So you could go one of two routes here. You could create an evergreen story that could fit into the podcast schedule at any moment. So it's just like if they need a guest, and it's not anything like seasonal or specifically timely, you could have something that would be a good fit, kind of evergreen at any time. Or you could craft a timely story that's tied to events or an upcoming holiday, like Pride Month or Labor Day celebrations, like, sun safety or pool safety over holiday celebrations. But either route you choose, it's a good idea to prep a few topics and talking points that your client's expert or the founder of the company could speak on outside of that main story so that you can pitch them as a resource for any podcast if they need an expert to weigh in. So think about that specific expertise and where they could provide value no matter when the podcast host or their guest booker gets back in touch with you. They may say, hey, we are looking to do a story on this recent study that just came out. Could they comment on that? Because you've pitched them and you've said, I have this expert and this is a list of the topics they could cover. They might reach out to you proactively and say, you know what, we want them to weigh in. So you want to build a story that no matter when it's told, if it's evergreen or very specific, timely right now, it's going to benefit the podcast listeners. It's going to add something useful, something inspirational, something informative, something similar to when you're pitching an expert for TV. And the podcast pitch should also include a brief bio of that expert or the founder's bio, depending on who you're pitching, but you can tweak it to fit that story that you're telling. So you want to highlight those most relevant details, like a newly launched product that they developed, if they're really coming on and talking about innovation in their industry. Maybe they have a book that they just launched or a recent award that they won that highlights that expertise, and they can come in and talk more about not the award, but that gives them credibility and it makes that a little bit timely. But you can update the bio to reflect that so that they have that credibility when the host tees them up as the expert. You also can highlight some personal details that the host can relate to. So maybe they both love hiking. The expert is, just got back from Antarctica, and, you see that the podcast host also loves to travel. You can update that so that there's at least something conversational that the host could say, oh, like I can sink my teeth into that because I love to travel too. So that's a great way, is like kind of look at the bio and see. That's why the interview that you do with them in advance on a Zoom, you ask questions. You can get more information that might be of a personal nature. You can ask them, what are your hobbies? What's like a little known fact people don't, would it be surprised to know about you? Questions that get to know them a little bit, might find these little gems. The founder bio should also let them know right away that this guest is right for the podcast, so that you're really conveying, that we listen to the show, we know what the topic is, and this person is the right fit. We're not spray and pray. This is actually aligned. We listen, we get it, so really fine tune the bio so that it's short and sweet and clear that they are the right type of guest for the show, and outline their credibility in the bio. So put this in a separate section, maybe at the end of the pitch, but you want to list out those credentials and the brand info, like any relevant financials. Like some private companies won't share actual financials, but you can get like percentage of growth over time, or how big their team has grown over time, or maybe they have a large social media following or a large email list, any links to their website, social media pages, because you want them to be able to quickly look and vet and find that guest and see, maybe they want to see, is there anything controversial that they're posting about? Or, is there anything there that we could do a bit of research and see what their presence is? Or maybe they have a really large audience and that would be compelling to a podcast host, because you can convey that you're going to share the episode with their audience of X million people so that they get some additional reach for the show. And then if your expert or your client as the founder has done podcasts, TV, or radio, you can either create a reel, or if they're kind of impressive shows that are credible in the industry and really show that they have been selected by these well-respected shows as a credible and well-respected guest. It's too much well-respected, but you get what I'm saying. You can include direct links. So like in the past, I've been on some like really well-respected marketing shows as a guest talking about PR. I was on Entrepreneur on Fire many years ago. I still get people like they comb that podcasts looking for people to pitch for sales, opportunities. I got one today. And it was funny. You guys will love this as PR pros. It was one of those pay to play PR agencies that was like, I listened to you on EO Fire and I really love what you're doing at Generation PR. We are a PR firm. It was like just pulling like basic data of like, here's the person, here's the business, and then their standard pitch. So it's like, I love what you're doing at Generation PR. I'm a pay to play PR firm. You don't have to, pay anything until I land you results. Do you want to hear more? And I wanted to write back and be like, we've talked about that before, but it's like, dude, pretty lame. But yeah. Oh my God. So funny. You're just like, seriously? I get them all the time on Instagram DM and I'm just like, LOL. I write back LOL. So keep in mind too, that any show that your client's been on, or, if you're pitching yourself that you've been on, that gives you credibility, mention it and link to it specifically. Just like our usual pitches, and we really stress this a lot in the Pitch Lab, your podcast pitching also needs to be personal. You want to make connections. Specifically podcast hosts, there's like a personal aspect that's so deeply tied to them. They want to have real human interactions with their media partners. They want to make those real connections. So make sure the pitch opens with a personal greeting, just like it would with your other contacts, but connect with them on a deeper level just right off the bat. Show them throughout your pitch that this email is for them, only them, not like the guy that's like, yeah, they're really super sensitive. It's just different than writing because there is your voice, your conversation, your personal experience that you're sharing. I mean, podcasts are really there. Journalism is supposed to be like neutral unless it's, not one of those sort of like news opportunities. But podcasts specifically are very personal. So you want to match that with personal pitches that really make that connection right off the bat. You want to show them throughout that email that the pitch is only for them. So highlight why you think your client would be a good fit for their specific show, call out past podcast episodes that are relevant to your client. You're really showing them that you listened, their audience, their topic, and explaining that your client would bring a similar topic with a different perspective or similar caliber of expertise to the show. And if you're stuck on who to reach out to, look at the show notes of the most recent and the last few most recent episodes. They may be read out at the end of the episode or included in the episode's description. And there you can find a list of everyone who works on the show. So that could be the host or the producer. Those are your best bet to send a pitch to. And then from there, you can kind of start to do your little sleuthing and your digging. Search for the professional email on their LinkedIn or their website. If you're not connected to them, or maybe you reach out and try to make a connection. And if you're not, it's a little tricky to get their website from LinkedIn, but we have used Signal Hire and you'll get 5 free credits. And I get emails all the time, like, we've given you 5 free credits, where they will give you access as if you are a connection or you're on the paid version of LinkedIn to get their personal email. So Signal Hire will allow you to find those right email contacts and be able to start sending those specific pitches. They're getting to the right person. So there you can also check out the podcast social media pages, and maybe they tag their host or they tag their producing team, which will make your search easier. And you can also start to do that engagement where you're sharing, or your client or that expert is starting to share the episodes they've listened to, or they're resharing the podcast's social content. Maybe they tweet it out, or they send a thread that says, great episode, loved the advice given by so-and-so, couldn't agree more. Like, you're making those connections. You're starting to get that visibility up so they see you. So you know who to reach out to. You have your ideas for your experts and for your clients, founders, or somebody internal at the company to talk on these podcasts. But let's talk about you. You guys, my friends, you need to also be pitching yourselves to get on podcasts as an expert, because we all know we're experts. We're experts in what we provide as a service to our clients and our digital agencies and the niches that we have chosen. So we are also really good guest content, guest material. So here's how you can think about pitching yourself. And I would love for all of you in the comments to say, I commit to pitching myself. Awesome. I just did an interview on one yesterday. There you go. It just helps so much. It helps to share your expertise, maybe reach a different audience, to see what resonates, what parts of your story really resonate, to really be surprised with yourself. Like, how surprised were you when you were on the podcast with your level of expertise and your ability to just flow with no notes, because you truly are an expert at what you do. You don't have to get the questions in advance. You can just have a real conversation because you know your stuff. And the audience is going to hear that and feel that connection and know that you're the real deal. And they're going to like your personality. So your client's podcast shortlist might be even a good match for your own podcast search, but maybe your interests don't line up. Yeah, it totally reminds you just how great you are. Exactly. It's awesome, right? It's no cockiness or anything there. It's just having that ability to riff on a topic that people are like, wow, you kind of take for granted what you know until somebody asks you, and you can just share so much that is helpful. It's a great way to get yourself out there and show what you're made of. So as a digital agency owner, you want to show off your entrepreneurial expertise as well as the business and the services that you provide. And I love being on business-focused podcasts. And I feel like that's a really good kind of way to go here, especially ones that will regularly highlight entrepreneurs that are in your niche. So we have another +1 for Podmatch being super helpful here. And we want you to search for podcasts that are really tailored to your entrepreneurial peers. Maybe like our podcast, Pitching Powerhouse. Maybe there are other shows out there, Pitchin' and Sippin', with other PR pros or social media marketers, freelance writers, and also with your niche and the kinds of clients that you want to serve. You may come on and let's say I want to be connecting with beauty entrepreneurs. I might pitch myself to Los Angeles, knowing that it is a beauty podcast. They usually have founders of beauty brands on as guests, but maybe I could come on and pitch our step-by-step process for securing press in beauty coverage in top-tier outlets for beauty companies, and pitch myself as an expert there. And now I'm totally aligned with my target client, and then showing them all the razzle dazzle of like, look what we know how to do. So that's another way to go about it. You want to also go through that process of vetting and look at the potential podcast the same way that you would do that for your clients. You want to listen to a few, see if you get along with those hosts. Do you really connect with them? Do you feel like, oh yeah, that'd be really cool to talk to them and kind of share what I know? You need that chemistry, because that's where the conversation flows and it's not awkward and you feel like you're really shining and it's just great and it's over in 2 seconds and you're like, oh my God, that was so fun and so great. It's that feeling like Chrissy had, where you know yourself and you know what you're comfortable with. And if you get that gut feeling in your stomach, right? Like trust that feeling that something's right for you, put it on your list and go after it. Think of the shows that you listen to and how you can add value to those shows. And then you want to connect with the podcast host online. So you want to treat them like any new media relationship and connect online, get your name in front of their eyes, share their content, engage with them regularly on social, follow them if their pages are public, and then you want to leave value-driven comments and like and share their stories and their posts frequently so that they're seeing you and they see that you are engaged and you are adding value. So just posting something is great, but add your 2 cents. Add something that shows you're connected, you're listening, you're reading, you're sharing something that resonated so that there's actual value that you're adding in resharing their content. And then we know that the more you engage with them online, the easier it's going to be for that host to recognize your name when you send that pitch. And having that familiarity with the show and being able to show the host that you're a true fan, not just of the podcast, but of them, and you want to offer your expertise to their audience. You're not just looking for a quick media win, but you are an engaged, connected, consistent fan of this show. And the host can visit your social pages and show the value that you are already providing to your audience. And they're going to want those juicy stories for their listeners too. So if you're sharing something on social that gives a personal look into what you know how to do or how you started your business or what it's like to be a mom and an entrepreneur, and that's what they cover, they're going to see there that you are very aligned with what they already are covering and talking about on the show. And then you're pitching your unique perspective. So you pitch clients all the time. I know that pitching yourself can be a big adjustment. It's I don't know why, but why is it the hardest thing in the world to write our own bios or write our own copy for our websites? You know, yeah, you can get on a podcast and just riff on a topic when someone's interviewing you, which is why we often recommend, if you're stuck writing about yourself, have somebody interview you and then turn that into something, because it's easier to just flow when you're asked questions. But it's a lot harder when you're pitching yourself. So you want to shift the focus onto your unique talents, your stories, your experiences. And like I said, if you are struggling, you're like, I don't know, like it's so easy. Everybody takes for granted what they know how to do. That's super easy. It comes easy to them. They just think it's easy for everyone, but it's not. You have to think of the things that people are always asking you about, sharing your expertise on certain things so that you can start to look at those topics that people come to you for, that you're known for, that you are truly an expert in. And if you're stuck, have a team member or a close friend brainstorm the topics that you can talk about, have them interview you on Zoom and record it. And also look to your previous social media posts or any blogs or agency case studies that have resonated. Like people are like, oh my God, that's so awesome. Or you look at a case study and you're like, we crushed it. That was really awesome. And there was like a very specific, unique thing we did that really converted well. I would love to talk about that. And I have a great example because that case study really shows that it works and that we are good at what we do. Look at any social media post that got a ton of engagement or a lot of comments and people really talking about their experience on top of what you shared. Those are the topics that, because they've resonated before, probably will again. And we love the entrepreneurial journey, and podcasts are always featuring entrepreneurs. Like, this is something that people are either in the middle of starting a business or running a business, or they're thinking about it, and entrepreneurs sharing their journey, their struggles, and then their ultimate success. It's really inspiring, and it's also great how-to content. So you need to figure out what makes you unique to land yourself on a podcast. They're looking for that valuable and meaningful content. So even if it's that simple classic formula of X number of things I've learned as an entrepreneur structure, you can still put your unique twist on it. It has to be a story that only you could tell. I had an example once. I was asked to speak at an EO group. I know Christy and I had talked about this and it was all bros. It was like they were broing out, and they were like, very like in their custom bespoke suits, and like, just, oh, my Lamborghini's in the shop, so I took my blah, 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 whatever. And it's funny because now my husband's in the group, and he's like, my group is not like that at all. And I'm like, well, the group I talked to was. But I was trying to help them. A lot of them were entrepreneurs, and I was trying to help them come up with their unique story angles. And there was a gentleman there who was like a jujitsu expert. And I said, what, and he was also like running in a brokerage firm. And I said, well, is there anything tied to your martial arts experience and your training that has influenced your investing philosophy or the strategies that you implement for your clients? Like, is there a discipline or a focus or something there that you have applied from your martial arts over in your business? And he's like, actually, come to think of it. And I thought that was such a unique perspective that only he could provide, because he had this, like, he was a very well, respected, like, jujitsu, master. Like, he had won competitions and stuff. So it wasn't just like a hobby, but those strategies he learned, that focus, that discipline applied to his investing philosophy. And that was a really, I thought, good angle that kind of tied everything together, that put a unique twist on his story. So look for those ideas that may come to you. Like I have a friend who's an attorney who tries one new thing every single month. She is committed to trying one new thing. It could be throwing pottery or taking salsa dancing or getting trained in French cuisine or jumping out of an airplane. Like every month she does something, and she will ask people for suggestions, and she has committed to it. And like, that's super cool because she can talk about the different experiences she's had stepping out of her comfort zone and maybe how that applies to growing her legal practice, and the insights she's been able to connect with her clients, because she now has all these different perspectives she never would have had if she hadn't committed to these monthly new adventures. Think of something along those lines. And you also want to be patient and flexible, like any pitch. So to land a pitch, you need to stick the landing on the follow-up. And podcast timelines and pitching, they tend to be a bit more stretched than usual print and digital pieces. So instead of following up with the host after a day or two, kind of wait a week and reach out again, because they're doing the podcast pretty much part-time. They may not have the bandwidth to get to your email quickly. They're maybe doing one show a week, and they're booking way out in the future. And so they're in a process that's a little bit more drawn out. So after the initial follow-up, reach out again after another week, or send the pitch anew a few months later. Try a new angle, try a new idea, try a timely, relevant topic that might be coming up in the future. You could go at it if you're like, I know I need to be on the show. I love it. I listen to it. I'm a really good fit. Keep at it until you find something that resonates, or you might want to move on to the next potential podcast. So it's important to be flexible. Like we tell our clients, podcasters have pretty unpredictable schedules. Sometimes, probably most of the time, their content calendars have been set in stone for months. And we have had podcast interviews that book for 6 months from now, and the show will air 6 months from that. So we'll pitch, and then a year later, the episode comes out. It happens. So you have to be ready to schedule your interview possibly months from now if it's necessary. And then also keep in mind time zones that might come into play. So you want to be flexible with that interview time and be willing and able to record when it works best for the host's schedule. So my question for you, and I'd love to see in the comments, if you were going to pitch yourself for a podcast interview right now, what is one topic you feel you could talk about that would be interesting? What is one aspect of your story that you would love to share to inspire or to give a how-to so that people can take your expertise and apply it to their own situation, I would love to hear from you in the comments. What would you want to talk about? A couple things that I have shared. Sorry, there's like a kind of an emergency. How about this, you guys? Do you want to know what I did? That was totally, I've had a crazy week with a lot of like moving pieces. And there was a sort of an emergency with an influencer piece of content where it's in the contract that they have to tag the brand as a partner and a collaborator so that we can whitelist it and run ads against it, that they can share it on their page organically and get that engagement from both accounts. And the influencer posted the content, and even though we had told her 10 different ways that she had to post it with that tag, she didn't do it. And so, of course, we can't talk to her directly because she has a team, and then that team has a brand representative at an agency, and then we are connecting on behalf of our client. This was 2 days ago, and we wanted her to take it down immediately because there was getting to be a lot of engagement, and she didn't do it. And my main person, who is incredible and awesome and spectacular, is in New York, and she put it on me, like rightfully so. It was the one thing that I was supposed to keep an eye on, of like, make sure when she posts this content on Wednesday that she tags or Tuesday as a collaborator or whatever. And I'm like, okay. And then my day went sideways. I ended up at basketball practice, which I wasn't expecting, for my son, and took my eye off the ball. And she didn't post. She didn't take it down and repost. And the client was like, what's going on? What's going on? How can we make this right? And then my team member in New York was like 11 p.m. in New York and was like, hey, just wanted to make sure you're seeing what's going on. So I wanted to get back quickly. I'm in the middle of a gym with 100 little 9, 10, 11-year-olds playing basketball, throwing balls everywhere. And I went into my email and I replied to the client's email and was like, oh, this is so frustrating, and that whole deal. And I had actually included the brand the influencer's rep, the one who dropped the ball. And my husband was like, this is kind of like on Curb Your Enthusiasm, like an accidental text on purpose. And I'm like, this was not on purpose. This was because the response was actually what we wanted. She saw that I was reaching out to the client with tons of frustration and feeling annoyed that we spent all this money and didn't get what we were promised. But I never would have included her on that message. And she did reply to the client and was like, I'm so sorry. But it did take that accidental message for her to see our real frustration, because my message was not filtered. And I was like, oh my God, you know how Google will stack your conversations? And if you're on your phone, it's just like a stack, and you might be looking at like, this person sent this message, but you hit reply and it's replying to everyone on the chain of the last message that was sent, which was everyone, including the brand's representative, who dropped the ball. And I was like, ugh, so annoying. It's so frustrating. I'm so sorry. So that was bad. Of course, I wanted to always share my drama. So I'm assuming this is still Chrissy. I often speak about the one thing you need to do before you get started, before you start getting publicity, and how authors can use PR to skyrocket their sales. I love it. That's a great topic, because it is like, oh, I need to know that one thing. What's that one thing? Have I done that one thing? What do I need to do to skyrocket my sales as an author? I'm going to tune in, like very like insider secret-y vibes, which I think is really great. I talk a lot about the pivot, like a career pivot or a career transition. I've had a lot of interviews around going from law to PR. I think 18 years later, that's been how long since I made the transition. It's kind of less like relevant, but it's still part of the path to get here and the why. Like if I'm going to share my why, why I started my own business, why I share with this community to give expert strategies for running your own business and making more money and being really great at our careers and finding clients. It goes back to my why of why I left law, because it is not conducive to being a checked-in, present parent. But this digital agency is. And so I talk about that a lot. Oh, good. Okay. I just made the pivot. Congratulations. That's so awesome. So yeah, figure out what resonates, or when you talk to people and they're like, oh my God, that's so cool that you did that. I have my one and only endurance challenge I've ever done in my life. I basically summited, you hike up a ski run, a certain number of times in a 36, like a day and a half, and you summit Everest. So it's 29,029 miles that you are, think about that, 30,000 miles in 36 hours that you are vertically hiking. It's not just a walk, but you're going up. You're getting elevation gain equivalent to summiting Everest. Of course, you don't have the conditions and the altitude. You're not getting that high altitude-wise, but you're going up a mountain over and over and over and over and over in the middle of the night with a headlamp to equivalent Mount Everest. So that was like a big mental, physical, but really it was a mental game. And as I was walking like in the middle of the night with a headlamp with these green eyes staring back at me, like, what is that? Is that raccoons? Is it coyotes? It was really crazy. I started thinking about business lessons and like really just how what I was experiencing in that endurance challenge and like the head games and how it applied to entrepreneurship. And I wrote a blog post about it and then pitched it out for podcasts. And I got to talk about that experience and how it aligned with my experience as an entrepreneur, as an agency owner, as a mom, all the things. So that's a unique perspective that really only I mean, somebody else could pitch that idea, but in that specific endurance challenge and the agency side, that's my unique perspective. So that really resonated because it was different. So think about those like intersections for you, or when you interview your clients, like get those little tidbits and see if there's any connections you can draw. Anybody else want to share? You guys, there's a lot of you still here. What other topics do you think? I mean, we all have something of value to share. What has resonated that you could go right now and pitch yourself or pitch a client? And keep in mind, we have a database that you can get for free with our Pitch Lab. If you sign up for a year, it's like $970 for a year of the Pitch Lab, which gets you 12 months of execution plans and all of the masterclasses and our roadmap. You can train your team, or you can go through it again for some really good like strategy to execution to leveraging your results. Get an entire PR framework. And then you get some bonuses. And one of the bonuses is access to our pure community curated media contacts database. And there's hundreds, if not over 1,000, probably maybe 2,000 podcast shows and hosts and contacts in our database alone. And you might also want to consider the ChatGPT prompts and jump in there to see how they can help you start to build a relevant list of podcast shows. And absolutely, a lead magnet is such a smart thing. This is going to be able to share more about that, like this idea about what you need to get started and how you can skyrocket your sales. You could create a lead magnet, which I'm sure you have, and say, hey, if you go to my site, you can get my free guide on how to blah. And now you're capturing that audience and kind of owning it on your own list, which is extremely valuable. And I'm about to start pitching a visibility project I started, the Real 50, over 50, 50, really 60 and counting women over 50 that are quietly making a difference. I love that. Not quite there yet. Closer than my yeah, I was wondering, are you 50? No way. But I love that. That's great. And you're contributing to that, project of these women that are making a difference, making an impact, and giving them some more visibility. Yeah, I had a feeling you weren't 50 yet. You don't look it at all. So anyway, that's what I have for you guys today. Are you going to pitch yourself? Are we feeling like we have ideas to start pitching clients? Anything that's worked really well for you, would love to hear it. But, go forth and pitch. If you need some help, we have podcast pitching as an entire module content stack inside of the Pitch Lab. And we're here to help you. So I'll drop again this is our place where you could jump into the Pitch Lab or just grab our contacts database on its own. It's really affordable, blah, blah, blah. So, okay. Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for being here. I hope everyone is doing well, having a great week. Stay cool no matter where you are. And like always, leave us a review of our podcast, Pitching Powerhouse. Wherever you listen to podcasts, we would love to get a review. It makes our show visible so other people can find us. And I will see you all next week. Have a wonderful week and take care. Bye.